A journey through landscapes of voice, encounters with Bolivian music. In this journey, which truly began in the Inca capital, Cusco, Peru, I was astonished to realize the power of the Inca Empire through their music, dance, clothes, and language of Quechua. So it became very evident that throughout the Andean landscape, the culture is so similar, and even in the Lake Titicaca region to La Paz, and further on to Oruro, where the Aymara language is spoken, the similarity remained in my observation. The use of the word landscapes refers to the various terrains of Bolivia, be it the Altiplano, highlands, the valley region, and further east to the tropical Orient. These three distinct landscapes provide three distinct musical cultures. Landscapes of time throughout history have impacted on the culture of this nation, where just recently the government introduced a declaration of 36 indigenous nations in recognition of the ethnical terrain. Therefore, a new flag was introduced containing 36 colours representing this change. The voice of the people's needs to be expressed in relation to their lifestyle and their rich culture. So many questions need to be asked in relation to the people of this nation. How have the indigenous people and the mestizo people coexisted since the historical event of the 16th century, where the arrival of the Spanish brought with them their voice and influenced their culture? Religion played an important part in the shifting landscape of the people of this nation. But to what degree has the Catholic Church expressed vocal power on such a nation? So who lived there, and how has their musical survival, which is intertwined inside a rich culture, survived? Landscapes rise and fall throughout the seasons, and to understand these rifts as paramount in the structure of my thesis. Ask the daunting question of why is it that in Bolivia, a country situated in the heartbeat of South America, has such a rich culture, and at the same time one of the poorest countries in the Americas. Having tried to grasp not only the extent of their poverty, but also the huge variation of the musical production, we're realizing what are authentic, original, indigenous sounds in comparison to the voicescapes of the Spanish influence. So how has history changed and or remained static in the indigenous mestizo community through their musical performance? Rather than just explore the musical conduct of this country, one finds it imperative to dissect the historical landscape and ask whose voice has been listened to, for what reason, and for how long inside this country called Bolivia with its 36 nations. Landscapes change, and to what extent does the culture change? Or, in other words, where is the link between climate, the seasons, and culture through their music? Political nuances have impacted on the utterances in the communities and their daily lives. Government change, does that equal change in culture? And if this is the case, to what degree and arenas? How do we put this situation in the context of those who choose to live there and those who choose to migrate? Education system of the past and the present is the focus of where Bolivia has proceeded throughout history, and to what extent of the educational system has influenced their musical culture, be it that expanded or stagnated. Education could be the answer of the future, and exposing this theory could assist in the shaping of the youth's utterances. During the life cycle of those multiple ethnic groups, has modernity enhanced the musical production or disintegrated the musical richness of this nation? Investigation and exploration of these landscapes of time, and realizing who has the voice and who has remained silent, might open the doors to the musical creation, and therefore an ability to understand the reasons for this musical culture. La Paz has a very rich musical culture, as seen from the educational dance group Baffled Paz. The hotel near the main square where I was staying has had for years a continual stream of performances in the hotel's enclosed courtyard, with a huge variety of performances from indigenous folk to contemporary music. My next encounter was in Peña restaurant, where every evening a show was presented to the various tourists with a varied repertoire from local indigenous music and dance to the Spanish-influenced folk music. The Museum of Musical Instruments was so vast I could have spent days there, but the many photos I took are a great reminder of this extensive collection. A plaza performance in the once rich 16th century silver mining city of Potosi, high up in the Altiplano region, was a delightful surprise for a captive audience. Of course, now there are only a few scrapings of silver, but the tourists flocked there with their money to explore the mines and the history. I learnt of the Anata Andina Indigenous Festival in Oruro, which is an all-day street parade the day before the Oruro 3-day Carnivale. And to my amazement, many Bolivians had not heard of such an important indigenous occasion, where the village people gather from all over the highlands in an exchange of cultural musical performance, which demonstrated the wealth of culture. The UNESCO-listed Oruro Carnivale is a very glamorous, well-rehearsed event that began 2,000 years ago. The original people of Bolivia embraced Catholicism by adopting their gods and beliefs with that of the Catholic Church. Therefore, Pachamama, or Mother Earth, became the Virgin Mary, and further syncretism was the Tio Supe, or Uncle of the Mountains, became the Christian devil. The pilgrimage of 4 miles to the shrine of the tunnel takes place on Saturday, and the carnival is performed 40 days before Easter, with 28,000 dancers, 10,000 musicians, 150 bands performing 18 different types of dances from not only the Andean regions of the Altiplano, the Yungas, where many Africans who came as slaves to work in the silver mines reside, valley areas of Cochabamba and the Orient, and over 400,000 visitors enjoy this spectacle from all over the world. Valley landscape. Drifting down the 4,000 meters altiplano to the valley regions was a refreshing change, as there I could breathe, eat and walk to explore a quaint village for New Year celebrations in Tortora. Here the festival began with a church service, and after the service the Virgin statues were paraded around the tiny village streets for all to enjoy. All night long in the plaza the band played, and the people from outlying villages and Cochabamba danced and partied with such enthusiasm. In this village there was another venue for music and dance in the courtyard of a large house, which was close to the hotel I was staying at, so I went to investigate. But as I walked in, it was immediately apparent to me that this was not the place for an outsider. Indigenous people sitting, standing, dancing to some form of upbeat folk music were all becoming inebriated in their drinking of an alcoholic drink called chicha, which is made from corn. Further south on the main road between La Paz and the official capital of Sucre took a very long time to navigate, as there is very little infrastructure in Bolivia. Here I encountered the music school called Los Masses, playing tunes from a variety of regions and countries. Roberto, the director, began this school in the 70s as he realized the value of maintaining their musical culture through the education of the youth from not only the city but from nearby rural villages as well. During my time there, the students were rehearsing for an hour a day, every day, and had been for the past 15 months, in readiness for the performance in a large hall, which they hired. Being part of the audience was a great pleasure, as there were at least 50 children from ages 2 to 22, playing various instruments from the zamponia, drums, chirengo, and flute. The Los Masses 7-piece band also played various repertoire, such as the La Rotunda, a Creole piece from Urban Wayno, Campaniera, which is dedicated to future mates, and Moreno Angelico, which is from the times past, as the rhythm represents the slaves pushing the grapes for wine making. Extracts from this concert were taken to give you an idea of the variety of dances the students performed. In Sucre, I organised through a young musician who came from this village called Candelaria, an hour-and-a-half trip, because my interest was to discover firsthand the weaving from this village. So we, the taxi driver and son, spent the whole day there walking around the village, eating lunch, which is always some form of chicken, and after the meal I brought out my charango, and before I knew it, a man from the village, plucked from the street, came in and performed a tune on my charango, to which I danced, much to the amusement of the locals. Post-lunch was a visit to a small but impressive weaving museum, which was built by the village cooperative. How the weaving tells so many stories, it's like reading a book, and it is a great educational activity of such detail and care. The Orient. The purpose of exploring this hot, flat, tropical region was to discover the influence of the Jesuit Church. Having discussed this period with an historian in the Casa de Libertad in Sucre, where he had mounted an exhibition about this 75-year-long influence by the Jesuits, who were educators in carving, construction, and most importantly, music. The priests were prolific writers of music and introduced Baroque string instruments to the nation, and to this day, their influence remains a strong tradition inside the church. During the visit, I was fortunate enough to meet a musicologist priest who was auditioning in the various Jesuit mission towns for the every 2-year Baroque festival. Also, he encouraged me to visit the archives of one of the missions, where the 5,000 scores were discovered from various sections of these missions when the churches were being renovated. Hence, many arduous years of restoration of these old scores. One of the requirements in the repertoire for the festival was to perform one of these scores. In the village of San Javier, outside the church, a traditional ritual was being performed by the locals as a type of comedy, and all the fanfare that goes with it. Here again, the involvement with the children in musical production was enormous, as I visited and partook in rehearsal of a Franciscan music school, which was so poor, but the musical devotion so rich, as the students were so enthusiastic and the teachers so dedicated to educate the 350 students in their Baroque musical history. In conclusion, I witnessed a variety of musical performances in all areas of Bolivia, and this experience confirmed to me that through the maintaining and educating their musical culture, the people of Bolivia are enriched. My time in Bolivia came to an end, and with this experience a wealth of knowledge. Through an educational journey will the realization of the importance to keep their culture alive and to have the strength of voice to object to the government in the closure of the Inata Andina festival, and also the power to be discerning when the tentacles of the evangelist reach out into the poor, illiterate communities and demand they dissolve their culture. Quote Bigelow, 2002, but within the folklore festival context, they strive for cultural authenticity. The temporal organisation of these multicultural parameters moves as all subjects into representational logics that curtail the multi-sensorial experiences of ritual and of the groove.